It goes without saying that it's my privilege to introduce a wonderful and talented person to speak to you today. Joanne Hanley joined the Gettysburg Foundation as president on February the 1st, 2011. During the last 2 years, she has moved the foundation's mission to new heights as we plan the celebration of the 150th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg and Lincoln's famous visit there, honoring those who made that ultimate sacrifice to secure the freedoms that we here today enjoy. Joanne grew up in the Park Service. Her past experience with the National Park Service spanned 32 years, which made her a perfect leader to follow the legendary Bob Wilburn as president of the foundation, who spoke to you many years ago. She earned her bachelor's and master's degrees in environmental science from Long Island University and Washington State University, respectively. Joanne's previous positions of leadership began when she assumed the position of superintendent of the Women's Rights National Park in Seneca Falls, New York. During her career with the Park Service, she prepared many management plans, for several Alaska national parks as they were being accepted into our nation's park system. Joanne also spent time in the Washington, D.C. office of the National Park, engaged in training and technical assistance in the Southeast Asia and Africa for the Office of International Affairs. Previous to her retirement from the Park Service, she served as superintendent of the National Parks of Western Pennsylvania, managing the Fort Necessity National Battlefield Restoration, and her crowning event with the Park Service included the planning, fundraising, and executing the construction of Flight 93 National Monument. If you have not been there, I urge you to visit and experience the reverence of that place of honor. Joanne and her husband Matt have a daughter currently in graduate school, and she'll graduate this spring from the University of South Carolina. She also enjoys camping, exploring North America's rivers in her canoe, as well as being a Rotarian on leave. And as I speak, she is also planning for her daughter's wedding in August. I think you will enjoy hearing Joanne speak today about our work in Gettysburg. Joanne, I just want to say in front of this group how much I enjoy working with you and having you on the team at Gettysburg. Joanne, the podium is yours.
Thank you, Bob. And I just want to say planning the 150th anniversary is infinitely easier than planning my daughter's wedding. That being said, I'm sure you all know the story. It's 1863, and the Confederate States seemed to be winning every battle in the Civil War in the East. General Robert E. Lee wanted a victory in the North, and he wanted to capture some piece of Northern territory, probably Harrisburg. On June 28, 1863, Abraham Lincoln gives General George Meade his first Army command, the Army of the Potomac. Lee is making his way through the Shenandoah Valley, northeast, towards Pennsylvania, hiding behind the Blue Ridge. While there's Meade going up this way. Lee is making his way up this way, and while Lee is making his way up this way, Meade is coming up through Frederick, Maryland, to find out what Lee's up to defend Washington, D.C., and to destroy Lee's army if he can. As 165,000 soldiers clashed, more than 7 million bullets were fired. 51,000 men became casualties. And in those 3 days, July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of 1863, The tables turned in the Civil War, leading to one nation, indivisible, and the rest is history. In past years, the old Gettysburg experience would be one of visiting an old, deteriorating, outdated visitor center with old exhibits. Technology was certainly outdated, or not used at all. I'm sure many of you remember, many of you love the old electric map, and I apologize in advance to many of you that it's not there anymore. The thousands of artifacts, however, in the collection were stored in the unheated basement of the old visitor center building, and they were being exposed to water and to humidity damage. The archives, those precious archives, were in the maintenance building next to the welding shop, and there was no fire protection. Additionally, the original cyclorama painting of Gettysburg, housed in an old, deteriorating building again, was missing more than 35% of its original fabric through deterioration. And actually, it had 12 feet of its sky cut off to fit into the building. It came through a warehouse fire at one point in its life, and it was stored and folded up, exposed to harsh environmental elements throughout much of its life. It certainly was only a large painting hung like a shower curtain in a round building. But as you all know, in the late 1990s, a vision was created by a group of very special people to change the way, the manner, and the level of how Gettysburg is experienced. After 55 public meetings and 3 congressional hearings, the Gettysburg Foundation, along with its partner, the National Park Service, opened the doors of the Gettysburg Museum and Visitor Center, a state-of-the-art, interactive education and learning center. This is due solely to the tenacity, passion, dedication, and commitment of our chairman, Mr. Kinsley, along with the support and dedication of his wife, Mrs. Ann Kinsley, our board members, along with many other historians, donors, and patrons. And I'm sure many of you in this room were involved. Thank you, Mr. Carter. I know you were too. It is the only privately owned visitor center in the entire National Park Service in the entire country. And while it was built with private, federal, and state money, we operate it solely on our revenues, and we don't rely on any federal or state money for its operations. Nearly 1 million visitors pass through our doors every year. It has been a tremendous success and something that we're all very proud of. The beautiful building blends into the landscape in a stunning fashion commensurate with each season. The 25-minute feature film narrated by Morgan Freeman provides you a dramatic overview of the Civil War and the Battle of Gettysburg. Restored to its original splendor, the cyclorama painting includes the recreation of that 12 feet of missing sky. And it also includes a 3-dimensional diorama that was missing for 40 years while it was housed in the old building. And 11 galleries of the Gettysburg Museum of the American Civil War puts America's turning point in perspective using exhibits, sounds, video, and setting to give you a deeper understanding of the war and its impact. And I encourage each of you, if you haven't been there, to please visit and let me know when you're coming. But the museum is only the appetizer. The battlefield itself is what's important. That is where the history happened, and that is where the meaning and the relevance of the Civil War come alive. And that is why we are there. What sets us apart from many other museums around the country is that we are there where the actual history occurred. And that's what makes a national park a national park. Because so many turn to Gettysburg for inspiration and understanding, it's crucial that the legacy and the soldiers who fought and died there is present for generations to come. Now, it's for this reason that the Gettysburg Foundation works closely with the National Park Service as a partner to preserve and protect Gettysburg, as well as Eisenhower National Historic Site. The Foundation's forward-thinking, nonprofit partnership with the National Park Service combines the academic legacy and the interpretive expertise and the preservation resources of the National Park Service with the valuable public outreach capabilities the private sector financial support, and the flexibility of the Gettysburg Foundation. As we now commemorate the 150th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg and the Gettysburg Address, the Gettysburg Foundation has developed two ways in which to honor this special time. First, I'll talk about the events and the commemorative activities. Both the National Park Service and the Gettysburg Foundation are going to have many, many anniversary commemorative events, special activities, living history, and I'll talk a little bit about those. These symbolic gestures, these one-time happenings, are very important because it's a way to involve citizens from around the country in paying their respects as they learn about Gettysburg and as they learn about what happened here. I'll highlight a few of the signature events for you. There's a handout on the table that you can look at, but really if you want to get a detailed itinerary of everything that's happening, just come and see me afterwards, give me your card, and I'll make sure that we mail you one right away. I had no idea there were going to be 200 people in the room. The 35th largest, who knew? We have many, many special sponsors for these anniversary events, but I'd like to specifically thank Joe Crosswhite and Jim May, our really good friends at M&T Bank, one of our leading partners in these activities, as well as several other businesses that have a presence here in New York, such as First Energy, Giant, and PNC. We've had a lot of good friends step up and help us be sponsors of these activities. Now, while both the Park Service and the Foundation have year-long activities, I'll focus on just a few during June and July, the high holy days, as they call them in Gettysburg. We start off on June 15th with a reception for the grand opening of our new Treasures of the Civil War exhibit, which will be located in our Gilder Lehrman Temporary Exhibit Gallery. Leaders of the Civil War and the stories behind their personal artifacts and belongings will be featured. Leaders not only like Lincoln and Lee and Meade and Jefferson Davis, some of the more recognizable ones, but citizens as well, like Clara Barton and Frederick Douglass. This will be an up-close and personal look at those who shaped the war and therefore America. Nearly 100 exhibit artifacts associated with these legendary leaders have never been before exhibited at Gettysburg, and they come from outstanding Civil War collections around the country. And so, what I'd like to do, if you're interested in coming to our reception on June 15th, again, let me know and I'll make sure that you get on the invitation list. Just come up and give me a card afterwards. It's going to be a very exciting time, and the exhibit will be there for 3 to 5 years. Now, the main events around June 30th, July 1, and July 3. The grand opening ceremony, a new birth of freedom, to kick off the 3 days of July 1, 2, and 3, will be held the evening of Sunday, June 30th, on the battlefield, right at the site of Meade's headquarters, where the old Cyclorama building, which is taken down and is no longer there, where the old Cyclorama building was located. It will include music by Trace Atkins singing the national anthem, the United States Military Academy Orchestra, and our keynote speaker will be Doris Kearns Goodwin, who wrote the book Team of Rivals, and on which the movie Lincoln was based. And there'll also be dramatic readings during this ceremony, but the ceremony will conclude with a procession to the Soldiers' National Cemetery to see luminaries marking the more than 3,500 graves. It's always a very, very compelling and inspirational sight. Now, on the evening of July 1st, a special salute to the states at the Museum and Visitor Center with honorary co-chairs, Governor and Mrs. Corbett, will include a special performance by actor and playwright Stephen Lang, emceed by historian Harold Holzer. There will be Civil War ballroom dancing if you so choose, or you can just sit and watch. And the dress is either business or Civil War period costume. So if you're an actress or someone who likes to pretend to be someone else, please feel free to come to our event, because we'll also have a culinary tour of America highlighting the regions with food from all of the different states that participated in the Civil War, as well as drinks like bourbon and juleps. So it'll be a great time. And we know several governors from several of the states will be attending as well. Our traditional Sacred Trust talks and book signings with renowned authors will take place on 2 weekends this year instead of one, June 29 and 30th, and July 5, 6, and 7. These are really informal one-hour talks. It's a casual take on a lecture series with questions and answers, and it's at the Museum and Visitor Center. And some of the authors are just outstanding. Jeff Shara, who I know is coming to York around that same time, Jim McPherson, Ed Bars, Alan Gelzo, and Ta-Nehisi Coates, who writes for The Atlantic magazine on slavery and the African American experience, will be there as well. He's really a great speaker. And there's lots of other events, dinner and a movie with Ron Maxwell. If you want to see the movie Gettysburg in our theater, have dinner with the producer and hear him talk about how he made that movie. It'll be a great time to come. So, not to forget, our special National Park Service partner will have many, many events on the battlefield. Talks going on continuously, hikes, special programs, living history camps, demonstrations. There'll be a family activity tent. And these will be situated all over the battlefield at different stations on day 1, day 2, and day 3, culminating with a march across Pickett's Charge the afternoon of July 3rd, ending, of course, near the angle, followed by playing of taps and echo taps. Should be a very, very moving experience. So if you want to walk across Pickett's Charge with several thousand of your closest friends, but people who care, that'll be available for you to do as well. And don't be afraid to come, because plans for shuttles are in place to take people around the battlefield, and they'll be available to go from the Museum and Visitor Center to all of the talks and programs and living history locations on day 1, 2, and 3 of the battle anniversary. We've been working very closely with ACTA to help the traffic run smoothly. Let's just keep our fingers crossed. But more than events, more than activities, more than lectures and exhibits, we want to leave a legacy behind for the 150th. Over the course of my career, I've been involved in 2 or 3 major anniversaries. And when everybody goes home on July 10 or August 1st, when everybody goes home and the party's over, so to speak, what's left behind? That is also what we're focusing on. So that 100 years from now, 50 years from now, people will be able to look back and point to this historic undertaking. We wanted to do something on a scale as grand as building our magnificent museum and visitor center, which is a legacy unto itself. We're now in the quiet phase of a 5-year campaign to build support for Gettysburg in 3 critical areas: preservation, acquisition, and education. This will sustain not only the battlefield, but also the messages of sacrifice, ideals, and reconciliation that can still be found on the hallowed grounds of Gettysburg today. With over 1,300 monuments, 6,000 acres of battlefield, historic buildings, miles of historic fence, countless priceless artifacts, the work of preservation at Gettysburg is vital, and it's also unending, because as soon as we finish, we've got to start over again. The Foundation has taken on several preservation legacy projects as part of our 150th campaign, and I'll highlight just a few of them today. And if you're interested, there's brochures on these projects on the registration table that you can pick up as you leave. Perhaps one of the most important is the George Spangler Farm property, acquired by the Foundation in 2008. It's the best documented and most intact Civil War field hospital site today. About 100 Union and Confederate soldiers were treated at the farm in the days following the battle. Preservation of the farm, which is also the site of Confederate General Armistead's death, will provide an unparalleled opportunity for us for interpretation of Civil War medicine. The farmhouse, the barn, and all the outbuildings are in disrepair and deteriorating, even though we've taken steps towards emergency stabilization. By this summer, the summer kitchen, where Armistead died, will be completed, and the farm will be open on weekends on a limited basis from Memorial Day through the end of October. Ultimately, the barn will be the next thing that we complete, followed by the farmhouse, which will be the home of our leadership program, and the complete restoration of the farmstead, which is a top priority project of the Foundation. The Emanuel Harmon Farm was the site of the first battle of the 3 days at Gettysburg, and saw some of the most desperate and bloody fighting. Formerly the Gettysburg Country Club, there were nearly 2,000 casualties, and the farm was subsequently damaged by fire. In 2011, the Park Service acquired the former farm. The Gettysburg Foundation is now working to secure the funds to commission a cultural landscape and treatment plan to understand the steps needed to restore the farm from its current state as a golf course or a former golf course, to allow for historic interpretation of the site, and most importantly, to have visitor access and parking, which is not available right now. The Soldiers National Monument, which is located in Soldiers National Cemetery, where President Lincoln gave his address, was the very first memorial placed in Gettysburg. It honors the battle soldiers and tells a story of peace and plenty under freedom. But unfortunately, the 5 heroic-sized figures, such as this one, which are mounted on a granite pedestal, are carved from Italian marble, which is extremely susceptible to degradation. The deterioration of these figures is accelerating, and we hope to raise the funds to rehabilitate this monument and others to protect it from further deterioration. The foundation is also focusing on the continued caring for nearly 400 cannon carriages around the battlefield. And that's important because the National Park Service places those cannons in the exact location where they were during the battle. And that really helps the visitor understand who is firing at whom and from where. It really paints a story of understanding. A very key and important acquisition opportunity is the Lincoln train station. It was the spot where Lincoln began his historic stay in Gettysburg. It was a hospital for the wounded, both during and after the battle, and it was a hub for the town of Gettysburg in the months following the battle. We're in the process, in order so that we can do historic interpretation and preservation, we're in the process of raising funds to purchase the building in order to donate it to the National Park Service so it becomes a part of Gettysburg National Military Park. One of the other significant projects we're undertaking is to help the National Park Service take care of Little Round Top, which is being loved to death. The renowned and heavily trafficked high point of the battleground suffers today from deterioration of pathways, parking lots, soil erosion, and signs of overuse. The Park Service recently completed a report outlining its future use, restoration, parking, circulation, and it is our hope to help fund this very, very important project in the years to come. But perhaps, I say every project is the most important one, but perhaps this is the most important one. Through our seminars and tours and programs and educational offerings, the Foundation provides an array of opportunities for visitors, young and old, as well as some specialized programs through our Education 150 initiative. Here you see 50 teachers from underserved and underrepresented school districts throughout Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Maryland, and inner city areas. They came this summer, some of them out of the city for the very first time, for a week-long experiential and immersion course to develop lesson plans to bring back to their school districts. They're now bringing their children back on field trips, and their students this coming summer are attending a leadership camp that's being hosted by the Foundation at Gettysburg College. We're raising funds to repeat this program in 2014 and 2015. But fundamental to the stewardship is the commitment. In time, expertise, and treasure of more than 20,000 members of the Friends of Gettysburg around the country. The power of the sustained annual giving that our members give to us, while critical for support of the ongoing programs, also engages tens of thousands of individuals and families in their own personal commitment to Gettysburg. Our members don't just sit idly on the sidelines. They get involved in the work of preserving Gettysburg by attending musters, seminars, programs, and volunteer work days. Our membership remains very active in all things Gettysburg. There's membership brochures on your table, and again, if you're interested, just give me your card and I'll make sure you get one. I know you can't read this, but I'll read a couple of lines from it. In the back here, it's a little bit far. Since those events of nearly 150 years ago, millions have made the pilgrimage to this place that serves as a symbol for one's beliefs and as the foundation for, as President Lincoln stated, a new birth of freedom, as we heard before. These are the words that explain why we're here. And when I read these words, The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. That speaks to my heart, and that's what brought me to Gettysburg. It is for us, the living brother, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. That is why we are doing what we do, to carry on the work and the mandate of President Lincoln, to honor, to remember, to never forget, to ensure that our country, its memory, and its history goes on. The Foundation is dedicated and committed to preserving this history through projects, further education, interpretation, landscape and battlefield preservation, and land acquisition for this and for future generations. It's truly an honor, and I thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you today about what we're doing. If anybody has a couple of questions, I'd be happy to answer any. And I understand if you have to leave, I won't be insulted. Anybody have any questions about our activities? Again, I welcome you. Give me your card and just tell me what you're interested in. I'll jot it on the back and we'll get information to you as quickly as we can. Yes. Bob Kinsley's nodding yes, they could. Actually, I think I heard, and I don't know if this is correct or not, but I heard that they were felt on the Laurel Highlands Ridge all the way out of western Pennsylvania. I don't know if that's true or not, but Bob, you said yes, they were heard here. Yes, Jim. Good question. You noticed I didn't say anything about November. Obviously, Dedication Day is November 19th, and President Obama has been invited to speak at Dedication Day, and invitations have come from the Lincoln Fellowship, Gettysburg College, Gettysburg Foundation, and the National Park Service, as well as from Senators Toomey and Senators Casey and Congressman Perry. They all wrote and invited President Obama. We didn't get a no, but we got the typical answer from the White House. We can't tell you what we're doing until 3 months ahead of time. I would be very surprised, frankly, if this opportunity was missed. What an incredible symbol to have him visit here during this dedication of 150 years. That being said, there'll be other activities going on. The Remembrance Day Parade is November 23rd. We're in the process of also planning some other special talks that we haven't announced yet. We're still in the planning stages, trying to coordinate everybody in Gettysburg so that nobody's overlapping is something that we're paying attention to. Thanks. Anybody else? Great. Well, thank you very, very much.